Greetings, listeners. Welcome to Reckless Attack Behind the Screen, Episode 1. This is our semi-regular behind-the-scenes look at our 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons actual play podcast. This is going to be the space where we give some insight into things like lore and world building, character details, interviews, and more. We hope this becomes a fairly regular thing, and we hope to hear from listeners like you about what kind of content you'd like to see here. For today, we're hoping just to do some introductions. We will introduce D&D and tabletop RPGs, we'll introduce the players, we'll introduce the characters, and we'll introduce the world that we'll be playing in. We've worked very hard to keep it all engaging and fun, and we hope that you'll find it all enjoyable and enlightening. It's all time-stamped and is also all very much background info that will be covered in the actual sessions as they come up. So you'll only miss a little bit of flavor and fun if you skip this one, not plot. Please visit us on social media to let us know how you liked it, check our website, and be sure to rate and subscribe wherever podcasts can be found.
Some of you may be wondering, what exactly is a tabletop role-playing game? Well, let me go ahead and explain this for you, but know that it is kind of different things to different people, so it might not be the exact definition that you're used to. So starting off from just sort of a base definition, I suppose, I have the Wikipedia article.
Can we chime in? Like,
Webster,
is this
Webster says.
Yeah, exactly. What is a tabletop role-playing game? It is a form of role-playing game in which the participants describe their character's actions through speech. Participants determine the actions of their characters based on their characterization, and the actions succeed or fail according to a set formal system of rules and guidelines, which is really just a very long-winded way of saying we're playing a game where people talk about things and cool things happen. So, just kind of taking that back a little bit, what is a tabletop role-playing game in more casual? What am I saying?
In more casual terms.
In more casual terms, yes. I feel like I'm too stiff a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if this is
not gonna work out the way we wanted it to, I think.
Just have it more of a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve.
What is a role-playing game to you?
Role-playing game. Well, I guess if you break it down, it's each person takes on a role, and you are pretending to be a specific character in a specific setting. And what you do is you kind of develop a personality for this character, and you determine how they would act in particular situations. And then the success and failure of those actions that you decide are determined by a die roll. And we have various different types of dice, the most common one being 20-sided, and that's what you'll, when dice hit the table and you hear that, that's most likely one of them at least is that. Essentially what that does is break all of your skills down to some kind of percentage chance of working, and then you roll and you see if it works. And most of the time, if it doesn't work, that's where you lead to really good stories.
So that's a much better definition than what I had.
Yours was fine.
Yeah, they all work. This is what tabletop role-playing is. It's different perspectives on the same thing, and we interweave our stories and our perspectives.
Yeah.
And then somebody rolls a nat 1 and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Or a nat 20 and we just all jump up from the table, knocking stuff over.
Yeah.
And then we have like 30 minutes of resetting up everything.
Yep.
And then,
Right.
It's I'm sorry, there's no podcast this week because somebody rolled a natural 20.
And we flipped the table.
Mm-hmm. I mean, tabletop role-playing is really, like you said, something different for everyone that plays it. Like, you know, maybe some people play primarily one-shots, or they play in an organized setting like Pathfinder Society, or
or they play the same character with a group of friends for like 20 plus years. And I don't know any of those people.
Right. That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That never happens.
But the end goal is to, spend time with friends, tell a collaborative story, and
Have a lot of fun.
Yeah. The mechanics are just a fun and interesting way to, as Steve said, like, see if you succeed or fail and how to take those failures into a new path of the story. And then some tabletop RPGs really scar you as a character or as a person for life, so then you play the next time and your character does nothing. I'm talking about when I played Call of Cthulhu, because that was very spooky.
that was too spooky.
Too spooky. Ralph, you've scarred me for life.
Right. It's like, no, I can't play
If you're
this.
listening to this,
Right. Calling you out here.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Zhang. My pronouns are he, him. And I have been playing Dungeons & Dragons, actually more of tabletop role-playing games for close to 10 years now, I want to say. And in that time, I've played a number of different systems, but I did start off with Pathfinder back when it sort of first came out, and that was a real interesting experience. And now I'm here playing Dungeons & Dragons, so I haven't really gone that far.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know that you started playing Pathfinder not just as your first system, but like as it was coming out and launching, and in those first however many
I think
months
we
and
may
years.
have. I think I may have actually been like 2 to 3, like a 2 years out from when it first started, but like came in kind of at the ground floor, and I could talk about the rest of it later.
Hi, my name is David. Pronouns are he, him. I too have actually been playing Dungeons & Dragons for about 10 years. Started right about after college, not to date myself. And like my brother Jonathan said, it was a really interesting first system because it was so complicated. And also, I played a lot in the organized group Pathfinder Society. So there were kind of different standards, when you're playing in a big social group to when you are playing at a home game at your kitchen table. But from there has evolved and changed to different systems, playing with a lot of different house rules and a lot of different one-shot systems and other games.
We've gone through a lot of house rules.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of house rules in these last 10 years.
Some good, most bad.
Yeah, most of them, they don't work.
Play testing is what that's called.
Yeah.
But I love tabletop RPGs for the social aspect, just to be able to hang out with my friends on a Monday night, talk for 3 hours, and have a great story that comes out at the end of it.
Oh, all right. I will go next. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve. My preferred pronouns are he, him, and I have been playing. Well, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I was about 10. So that's going to be. Let me see. Carry the 4. So 34 years now, I think, at this point that I've been playing this game. Or a similar game.
Yeah.
I started out on the first game I ever played was actually because my one of my neighbors had the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook for first edition.
Cool.
And I remember my first character was an elf, and I don't remember too much more than that.
Was the class an elf too?
It was yes and no. So I believe it was an elf fighter, and my second character was actually from the basic edition, where elf, dwarf, and halfling were not only races, they were also classes. Like I said, I've been playing a very long time. I've actually played a lot of different types of tabletop games, so D&D being the main one of them. I've played Pathfinder, I've played Battletech, I've played Earth Dawn, I've played Star Wars, I've played all kinds of stuff, from basically spanning from medieval fantasy through modern day all the way to futuristic
galaxy far, far away.
Yes, the galaxy far, far away. Although that technically takes place before the medieval stuff because it is a long time ago.
Oh, that's fair.
Did you ever play Shadowrun? Did you mention
Yes,
that? Okay.
I did play Shadowrun as well.
Okay.
Shadowrun, Battletech, Earth Dawn. I believe I played Star Trek. I've played
Licensed property games.
yes. A lot of anything that came out like mid 90s or before, I've probably at least played once, including one called HOL, HOL, which stands for Human Occupied Landfill, where everybody plays a character that has been mutated because they live on a garbage planet.
Cool.
Yeah, so that one if anybody can find the rules for creating a character for that online, it is the most fun I've ever had actually making a character because it's nuts.
All right, everyone, and that is our announcement for a new whole podcast. Tune in.
But yeah, that's basically anything else will come up during these interviews, I suppose. But that's basically my shtick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. She, her pronouns. I have been playing tabletop RPGs for 4, maybe 5 years because I was introduced to them from a guy I was dating, and I was like, "Oh, he thinks this is cool. I should
like a
probably do something that interests him, I guess." So
Hi, everyone, it's me.
Whatever you do,
Everyone, it's me.
I am the person.
whatever you do not marry that guy.
Right.
Oh, too late, Steve. He's my husband now. But yeah, we started playing Pathfinder, and Jonathan was the GM for that one, and thankfully he was very kind and just told me if I succeeded or failed when I rolled the die and did the math for me because it was very complicated.
It's difficult math sometimes.
But he let me have a very big bird that I could try and turn into a tiny stone statue and put in my pocket when they were not safe.
I'm surprised that was actually your first game.
Yeah.
That seems like so long ago, but it was a lot of fun.
And just to clarify, you had a big bird or a big bird?
A big
Space.
bird.
Okay, so
Bird.
not a giant canary
No.
from
Lowercase
children's
b's.
television. Okay.
No. But yeah, I like playing different characters and really trying to force myself to not play as me, Sophie, and make decisions a character would make and not me. Umbra, my D&D character, was pretty easy because she was just like, "No, I'm going to fight till I die. It'll be fine." So yeah, so I enjoy
And then she
doing
did.
that. Yes.
She got better.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's only temporary.
So, but yeah, they've been fun, and each different RPG has different decisions to make and mysteries to solve, problems to solve, and it's fun to go through those tasks and puzzles with your friends.
Yay, friends.
Yeah.
Yay, friends. Hello, everyone. I am Nathan Lurs. I am your dungeon master, and I use he, him pronouns, not necessarily all in that order of importance. I am a professional writer and editor and have been doing that for a long time, and also have been now playing D&D for quite a while off and on. Or D&D and other tabletop role-playing games and other board games and such. I first came to D&D in a very, kind of backing in kind of way. It's kind of the 21st century version of those kids who in the 80s got the monster manual or whatever from the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and they never played because no one was around to play with them, but they just loved the art so much and the ideas of it. That was a little bit me. I actually got started with podcasts. That was kind of my gateway drug. In the 4th edition, podcasting was still very new. There was a really small number of people who were doing it, and I was hooked. I loved it so much. It was essentially my early 20s catnip plus soap opera addiction where I had to listen. I had long commutes and I had to listen all the time. And I have consumed a huge number of podcasts now, and now I'm compelled to be a part of my own, I guess. I started playing a little bit in the fourth edition. Steve was actually there for, I think, what was my second ever D&D game at a random game shop in Chicago, and we had a nice time. Without going into too much detail, or we can go into too much detail some other time, we talked a little bit outside of the session. We got connected on social media, and then years later, I put out a call to be like, "Hey, does anyone want to play D&D?" And all of the people around this table raised their hand, and
Technically, I volunteered David.
that's true.
And then I volunteered Sophie.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure Steve has been there at the inception for all of us, just when we all first
Steve
started
was at
playing.
the beginning. He
Yes.
was like
I'm the person in the high school photos who's in every photo, just in the background.
Right. He was like, but I started playing and Steve was there. Oh, wait, you too? What?
So
Find some picture of the 1800s and Steve is there.
of some strange 20-sided dice being rolled around
Like
made of bone.
dice,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm sure there's a picture somewhere of Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and then there's me in the background somewhere
doing something.
Yeah.
So I have mostly been a dungeon master throughout my RPG career, in part because, the old adage of no one else ever wants to do it is definitely true, but also because I really like doing it. I am definitely, I like being the center of attention, certainly, as the DM, but also do really enjoy the collaborative storytelling aspect, the ability to put stuff in front of your friends and see what they do with it and hopefully entertain them and make them happy, and to have them connect with each other and, have all of the incredible experiences that go into tabletop role-playing games. And to be someone who is able to help provide and foster that is really meaningful and really lovely for me. But yeah, I'm just really excited to be playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends.
Woo!
Cool. All right, so we have kind of a fun setup here, but we'll be doing pretty much just character interviews, or interviews about the characters. And the way we have this set up is Nathan over there has a bunch of scraps of paper, and each person will be drawing who is the person that they're going to be interviewing for today. So why don't we go ahead and get started?
Move into the middle. We'll put
Wait,
in
I
a
saw
drum roll.
Okay.
We'll shuffle them around. and if
Nope, can't do that one.
I got Sophie.
Oh.
I'll do
Wait,
this.
who did
I'll do
you-
this one.
who did
I
you
got
do?
my brother.
Oh. Well, I have you, so I can't trade you.
I'm doing this one.
nope. Well,
That means
you could.
Steve got himself.
You got Steve.
Steve got himself.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
We got it.
Who wants to go first?
David, I'm throwing you in the hot seat.
All right. Oh, man. Okay. I have none of this prepared, so.
So it'll be fun. Well,
A train leaving New York, traveling it.
I'll start easy. Please describe your character, name, class, levels, eventual subclasses,
Okay.
multi-classing weirdness that you have already done.
We really started with the probably most complicated and worst character here to do this.
Absolutely not. I will hear no negative comments about your character because you've put
That's
a lot
right.
of hard work, and time into building Kascorin.
And you've put me into hard time
That is true.
as your dungeon master in player creation jail.
Okay. Hi, I'm David, and I play Kascorin Brightmane, the Dwarven Warlock. So, Kascorin Brightmane, if you've seen the art already, is a pretty squat dwarf. He's got the rock arms, he's got the golden spirals and everything. And he really is the result of a player who likes to min-max, a dungeon master who is okay with min-maxing, and then just way, way too much time. So, Kascorin originally started back when we were first playing this podcast, way in 2019.
Yep. It's been a while.
His main concepts were he's going to do some magic stuff, he's going to have a warlock patron, and then he's going to be like a shield protector kind of guy, and that was it.
To be fair, actually, I think I created
Yeah.
the character first,
Yeah.
and then you took it.
So, yeah. Jonathan had actually
That sounds
created
right.
the concept, and I was like, ooh, that's neat, I'm going to do that.
When we had first worked on these characters, I had created the like shield warlock sort of thing, and then we did it in like this sort of mock battle, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, I like that."
Yeah, whatever I made sucked, so.
Have you guys ever considered playing twins in game?
I think there was one.
did.
Yeah, we did. In Pathfinder Society, we played two paladins who had like alligator pets for some reason. But there was a ability that you could get as a paladin where you could remove any condition if you were high enough level. And one of the conditions for Pathfinder at that point was death. And so we made two characters that could just get killed and then have the other resurrect each other until we would just live forever.
Oh, it was a really dumb thing because once you got the status, you were immune to it. So I would remove death from someone, I would die. My brother would remove death from me, he would die, and then I would remove death from him but be immune to it. So we would just sort of negate the death condition. And I remember we did it once to a very important NPC who died at the end of one module, and the GM was like, okay, what? He's supposed to die. It's like, oh no, I fixed that. Wait, you what? Oh no, yeah, he's fine. We're fine too.
And now you all see, you get a glimpse into what I meant when I said I had also been doing hard time in the character creation process.
I think he like made us fall for that because we're like, no, you can't stop that.
Right? Yeah, it's like I think we completed the scenario, but then we both went to like player jail.
Yeah,
player jail.
It's like go tone or something.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Kascorin after all of that. Kascorin is currently 1 level of Warlock. Eventually, he will be the familiar one, Pact of the Chain. He is also 1 level of Sorcerer, and his subclass is Stone Sorcerer. However, ordinarily there is a Unearthed Arcana Stone Sorcerer subclass, but instead of that one, we are using a homebrew one by a person who goes by KibblesTasty on the internet. They have a very good rework of the Stone Sorcerer that fixes a lot of things, makes it a lot more balanced, and is just generally more fun to play. So that is what Kascorin is and why he looks the way he does. The second part of it is he became a warlock early in his life and chose to pledge his soul to the Eternal Citadel, which is a giant floating citadel out in space that really stands for order and balance. Eventually, he will get some more cool protectorate abilities, but for right now, he's just chilling with that.
So the Eternal Citadel is also a homebrew patron. Do you remember where that comes from?
Oh, yes. The Eternal Citadel is also a homebrew patron that comes from a Warlock compendium. I will find the specific...
we'll put them on the website.
Yeah, it's. I know the acronym is like COFSA. It's like Compendium of something.
Don't worry, we'll link it.
That's where the original idea came from. After some time of going back and forth, I also wanted to change some parts of it. And so now the version that Kascorin uses is custom by me, but uses the Eternal Citadel name. So most of the abilities are different. Some of the spells are same, but it remains the Citadel in spirit.
What does the Citadel stand for? Like, what is... having made a pact with his patron, what does that mean for Kascorin?
Yeah. The idea of the Citadel is it goes to different worlds and finds champions that are neither good nor evil, but will do whatever they can to preserve order. So there are tales of warlocks of this patron that will lead a rebellion against some evil city. And then when the rebellion is complete, and new people have taken power, sometimes they will also become corrupt. And so the warlock will start over and lead a new rebellion against the ones that he has just put into power. But at the end of the day, whatever preserves balance throughout the cosmos is what the Citadel stands for. And so Kascorin is not necessarily good nor evil. I believe he's lawful neutral, technically, is his alignment. But he very much embodies the Citadel's values of keeping everything as status quo as he can.
Nice.
I do have one question I think I'm going to ask to everybody. Mm-hmm. I will interrupt your interview to ask this question.
Cool.
Were there any outside sources that you used as inspiration for Cass's personality? Or is it all you? That's also an entirely valid answer.
Yeah. I would say this one is mostly me. But also because his personality right now is very simple. I mean, he's just a very basic stalwart protector, trained in the military, and then is now going on an adventure. So I may take more inspiration from other sources as we go on and parts of the character become more fleshed out and apparent. But for right now, mostly just me.
So what was important for your character to be good at? And are there any mechanics that reflect it?
It was very important for Kascorin to, obviously be a protector, but I also wanted him to have some, skills outside of combat, and so he's very good at talking. And then 2, I wanted him to have some sort of damage mitigation, but not necessarily just straight healing. And so part of what the Citadel provides is the ability to give temporary HP to both himself and allies. So it's not a always thing. He can't just willy-nilly give temporary HP. Instead, it's tied to his ability to be in front to deal damage and be that shield. So one of his mechanics is to be able to give temporary HP to someone on the same turn that he does damage as a bonus action. And so I find that that is a really interesting way to keep people up for longer without just strict damage negation from healing.
Cool. So what is Kascorin's goal in joining the guild?
So this actually hasn't come up yet in the episodes that we've done, but Kascorin has a rival that he has spent some time with in his birth city of Lotros. And Kascorin, being an older man, he has seen this rival grow from being a small babe all the way up to now, he's in his early 30s, his rival is. And his rival has lived a storied life outside of the walls of Lotros. He's gone on adventures, he's gotten tales about himself told, and now his rival has come back to Lotros and has said, Kascorin, you need to do more with your life. You can't sit behind these walls, be part of the city watch forever. And so, through a series of events, his rival got him a position on the Golden Tree. And it was very much a sort of strong-armed, it's like, you're going to go do this. I've signed you up. You cannot back out.
Interesting.
And so Kascorin left.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Kascorin has left his comfortable life behind and is taking the next steps forward.
When is Kascorin happiest?
So Kascorin is happiest when he is comfortable. He has spent 30 years doing basically the same thing, being part of the City Watch. And so he loves, at the end of a long patrol where he just gets to sit in his comfy recliner, have a nice drink by the fire, or when he is out with his friends, carousing, having drinks, and having a good time. But he likes his creature comforts.
Would you say Kascorin is a creature of habit, of routine?
Oh, absolutely. I would say he loves the patrols where he gets to have the same rotation for 2 weeks. He just gets to walk the same path, see the same sights, and then go back at the end of the day and, put on his little slippers, put on his little bathrobe, and just relax for the evening.
Perfect.
Pipe and brandy snifter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So opposite of that, what does Kascorin absolutely hate doing?
Yeah. So that is a very, I think, obvious opposite of that, where he hates sleeping on the ground.
So he's really hating these first episodes.
Yeah. He was not anticipating that adventuring would mean going out of the city so much and being in the caravan, sleeping on a wagon, all of this outdoorsy stuff. And so even though it costs, it is heavier, he brings a cot with him instead of a bedroll. And he sets that up because, he cannot stand sleeping on the hard ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
I totally got a picture of him as Princess Vespa from Spaceballs. It's like the giant things of luggage, the enormous hairdryer.
Right. Yeah. Half of this wagon is Kascorin's luggage.
Yeah.
Why did we bring all this?
You mentioned that Kascorin is from Lotros.
Yes.
What does Kascorin miss / love about that city, and what is he, not sad to never see again, or maybe never see again?
So he loves the people of it, and he loves them for their diversity. Not because, just it's a large city, there's a lot of people there, but he loves that he can, as a city watchman, help people with a variety of different problems and in different situations. That's why he has been a guardsman for so long, is that he thinks that he can do more good out in the streets talking with people than he ever could as a lieutenant or commander. He loves being face to face with these people, and part of what Lotros gives him is the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people. As far as what he won't be missing, there was a really annoying thief that always got just right under Kascorin's skin. And he just had this weird blue skin, he had this dumb hat, and these frogs that followed him everywhere for some reason. But no matter what Kascorin could do, this little blue guy was always one step ahead of him. Just stealing stuff and even just playing pranks, getting up in his face, because Kascorin could never stop him. And over the months, it became kind of a game, something that Kascorin would almost look forward to because it kept things fresh. But man, he would not miss him, except for the fact that Checkers is on the wagon with him. It's me, Checkers.
I just totally got a Spider-Man J. Jonah Jameson vibe from you two. I was like, he's a menace. We have to stop him.
Was there a time where you guys where you ever had to team up? Where it's like, damn it, Checkers, you're a wild card, and you're always making trouble, but I need you.
And here I am, 2 weeks from retirement.
So I would say the thing that sort of is canon for Checkers, and I don't know if Kascorin, you've ever decided this.
That's a great way of putting it.
But it's actually the opposite thing. So in Lotros, Checkers has a tiny little orphanage set up, but he realized that he couldn't just steal the building that he was going to be using for the orphanage. There's a land grant and a title and everything. So he had to legally buy the building. But Checkers, can't really read that well or write.
Sorry, legally buy was in air quotes. I just
yes, I think that's an important distinction.
Right.
Good call, Sophie.
So he needed Kascorin's help to sort of do the paperwork, take out the loan, go and actually purchase the building.
And there was a lot of grumbling from Cass, but it's like, ugh, Checkers, this is for a good cause. You are buying this for an orphanage. Fine, I will do this.
Right.
a little appreciation from Cass that he's actually trying to buy it and not just.
I'll give you 10 gold pieces if you buy a building for me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's probably how it was introduced. Was like,
are you over 21? Can
Yeah.
you buy this building for me?
Right, just a little. I just need a favor. There's this building I need to own. It's for the kids. Don't worry about it.
yeah. And so Kascorin went through all of the bureaucracy to get this building bought, and then deeded over to Checkers.
I don't know if Checkers would even have the deed. It might be under Kascorin because what would Checkers do with the deed?
That's true.
He'd just lose it.
Yeah. That's probably under Kascorin's name.
It's probably too much bureaucracy to change the owner of
Yeah.
the deed.
Yeah.
It was but that was probably the situation where Kascorin and Checkers actually had to team up. Yeah.
Alrighty. Do we want to keep going? I don't know how many questions we want to ask each other. Do you want me to go through the whole list?
No, just one more. That's good.
All right.
Make it a good one.
Give us a wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the wildcard list.
I've been talking.
What does your character think is a huge secret about them that everyone actually knows?
Man, that's deepest lore. I don't know.
I didn't go with that yet.
Another one, I mean, it's kind of a take on that too, is what is your character's biggest flaw? And specifically whether cast knows it or not, or whether other people know it or not, is kind of another take on that as well.
Okay. So I'm going to go with what is Kascorin's biggest flaw, because I think it is an interesting question. So Kascorin does not actually know this yet, but he has a I don't think this is enough of a secret that I would hide it, but Kascorin is very afraid of death, more so than a normal person, which is counterintuitive given that he is a frontliner. He has the shield, he takes the damage, but part of the reason he does that, why he wears such heavy mail, is to stop himself from being hurt, subconsciously. And the same thing too when he was in Lotros, when he first made his pact with the Eternal Citadel, he thinks that it's because he's trying to save people. He wanted to in a time of turmoil protect as many people as he could, but let's be real here. No warlock sells their soul to their patron because they want to do good. It's because of fear. And so it was more, he wanted that little core of stability just for another moment, and to in this chaotic time around him, that he reached out to the Citadel, and the Citadel said yes.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, that's really good.
I like that.
So yeah, that is Kascorin's flaw, and we'll see it. He doesn't, we'll see it come up a little bit later, probably, maybe.
Well, thanks, David.
Yeah.
So I'll go next. I am interviewing Sophie, and we have kind of similar questions, but I'll just do kind of a different take on it. But Sophie, why don't you start off by telling us what your character's name is, who they are, and just some of the mechanical pieces behind them, their level, classes, subclasses, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Subclasses.
Yeah.
Subdermal classes.
Yep. The changes that you've made to the individual subclasses since you're no.
Yeah. Well, I am playing Valeska Carter, a second level cleric. I almost said paladin. Cleric of the Arcana domain, and I was going to have a custom subclass shenanigans, which was really just combining the knowledge and Arcana domain to make the arcane knowledge domain. And then I was like, no, this is too complicated, even though I was taking like 2 subclasses from the player's handbook.
You decided to not go with the no-cana?
No-cana, nope. No on the no-cana. So just strictly Arcana domain. And I don't think I will stray away from Cleric, though I definitely don't want to plan too far ahead, as in the year and a half we had to plan our characters, I went very, very far ahead and it was like, well, this is my like final form of Valeska that I want to happen. And like going back to level 2 had to be like, oh wait,
hard reset.
She has not had these life experiences yet. She would not be as impressive as she will eventually become, but I had to put the training wheels back on.
That's always really tough to do.
Yeah.
Cool. And I know one of the things that you had kind of worked on for this character was that you haven't really ever played spellcasters before in a Dungeons and Dragons game. So playing a full cleric is kind of a new experience.
Yes. I've only played in a campaign one other character, Umbra Bearclaw, who was a barbarian. And I was going to do full barbarian until I realized barbarians don't have a reason to talk to people in game. So I was like, let's put some paladin in there, get some charisma going.
Development.
Play, don't plan ahead.
Uh-huh.
And, because apparently there was and here's some more air quotes, incident that sparked that, which is great. I love that like, the character doesn't go how you expect it to go because stuff happens in game and you're kind of react to that and you're like, okay, this actually makes sense for her to do in this case.
Yeah. So as of right now, I will try to go cleric, but Val has a thirst for knowledge, and I feel like that can get into some very interesting situations. So we'll see how she handles them.
Cool. One other question I had for you, just in terms of the mechanics. Why is it that you decided to go with cleric as opposed to the sort of, standard intelligence wizard sort of thing?
Oh, wizards are too complicated. Cleric was like a nice beginner spellcaster level, and I can still hit things if I need to.
You don't have to prepare spells. You just get all of them. You can pick which one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, you do still have to prepare spells, but you can choose from any of them.
I think that was the overwhelming part, and what I, Sophie, feel like makes a wizard too complicated is I really have to narrow it down and pick and choose. Where it's like cleric, it's like they're all in my brain.
Just got to pray for them.
Yeah. Take some time out of my morning and figure them out. And then I, Sophie, will have to remember that I can change them.
And is there any particular cleric spell or sort of list of spells that you're really excited to get to?
Well, I had a taste of Spirit Guardians when we were playtesting level 5, and I really miss that now at level 2. But I've taken a few interesting ones, and I have 2 cantrips. One, Mind Sliver, and then another one, Encode Thoughts, which I am realizing we have been playing completely wrong.
Oh, good. Good.
But I like the way we're playing it.
It's a good thing we caught that early.
Spoiler alert to anyone listening to the next 2-ish episodes of the podcast.
I haven't used Encode Thoughts yet in our main campaign.
This was our level 5 testing.
Yeah, we're safe.
Yeah,
We're good.
Thank God.
But I like the way that you've been playing it anyway.
Yeah.
This is
100%.
cool. Yeah.
So there's an intelligence check I think you have to make to read the thought thread, and it's a thing in the thing.
We'll get to it, but that doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah.
Right? That's a little boring.
So those are 2 that I'm interested in, and yeah.
Cool.
I don't know enough. I haven't looked that far ahead.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a lot of them too. Okay, just kind of getting around the...
Sorry. One other thing. Clerics seemed very utilitarian, and I really liked that.
Yeah.
I don't like to be pigeonholed in a class, and you can play wizard in a lot of different ways, but there's really one really good way to play a wizard, min-max kind of wise. And like, well, I don't really try to min-max my characters. I do like to be good
Yeah, right.
at the mechanics.
Right.
So.
Exactly. So just kind of talking a little bit then about the character itself, Valeska Carter. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about where Valeska came from.
Oh, Valeska came from me watching Agent Carter during the pandemic and wanting to build Maggie Carter as a D&D character.
Nice.
Well, good. That answers my question.
Yeah.
It's like, what was the inspiration? This very specific person on
Yes.
this TV show. Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then I think that's where like I was very set on her like final form of like she's gonna be Maggie Carter, she's gonna be a fucking badass, and had to like reel that back and like, okay, no, maybe this is how she started out. And I think that's why I had her come from a order, because her parents are part of the illustrious Atheum. But I think that's why I wanted her to come from a order that really valued knowledge and not so much just like book learning, but how to do practical things, how to invent things, what is the best way to grow crops. How can we experiment with blacksmithing techniques? How
to perform post-mortem examinations.
Right.
Yes. And really figure out how can we make society better by learning and by sharing that knowledge with anyone willing to sit down and listen.
That's cool. I like that. Not just sitting over there in an ivory tower like, haha, I have all the knowledge, but going out and actively sharing it with people.
Yeah. Her order would be very against anyone who is hoarding knowledge and not sharing it. And I think, I don't want to like skip ahead on questions, but that's one reason she's joined the guild, is to go out into the world now that guilds are back up and running and wanting to not necessarily set up a branch of the illustrious Atheum in Agmar, but learn more from that city and write letters back to her parents and say, this is what I've learned in my journeys. And, is this a city that's open to more knowledge coming in?
And this is kind of a tangential question too, and maybe we don't have the answer for this yet, but is there a reason why Valeska chose to join the Golden Tree in particular, as opposed to another guild maybe? Or was the Golden Tree just like the first one that reached out and said, hey, we want you?
I had a very specific reason for her joining the Golden Tree, which I don't think is valid anymore.
So, and I'm going to get into it a little bit later, but so I think the Golden Tree for me has taken on a very interesting shape where there are a lot of different types of adventuring guilds throughout the many centuries and millennia of kind of the world's history. And the Golden Tree is one that is very well known because it is in it was at one point in time, at least, in a bunch of different cities all around the world. So tons of communities had a Golden Tree branch, kind of there. And to have that sort of an organization and that sort of like name recognition, essentially, it still holds a lot of weight in a lot of places in the city. It holds a lot of weight in a lot of places around the world. And
so it has deep roots.
Indeed it does. And wide at that.
And wide, yeah.
And so it's totally up to you guys and your characters and that kind of stuff. But I think it is actually very legitimate to get a knock on the door from this adventuring guild, and you or someone in your life would know who or what this is, and that being something exciting and something noteworthy.
So people have heard about the Golden Tree, so joining it's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And again, there's all sorts of sizes and specialties and types and all that kind of stuff. But you guys are kind of a classic, we go and solve problems, and we are the brave ones, and we step out to protect people, to protect communities, to gather knowledge, to do whatever, and build relationships in the communities that we're in and that kind of stuff. So yeah, have a very strong reputation, even if they're not necessarily the like, oh yes, they went out and campaigned and changed the world and, had like defining moments in their history. They still have a very strong reputation, basically.
Valeska would have been around when Arlen Brushbarrel started founding the Golden Tree as the guildmaster, wanting to revive this very ancient and well-known guild, and starting in Rakma, Valeska's hometown. She would have been there and heard about it. She wouldn't have been the first like class of heroes or adventurers because she was too young. Valeska is, I don't have an exact age, but this is very much her I've graduated high school, I'm going off to college kind of adventure, and making her own path in the world in her own name, because she's very much been a part of her parents' world.
Okay. And maybe you can tell me a little bit, if you're willing to share, about Valeska's family or parents.
Yeah. She had a very nuclear family. She is adopted. Her father, Caden, and mother, Miri, are... Miri is part of the illustrious Atheum. Caden is a book merchant, but is very active in the order. And her older brother, Caden Jr., is studying up and going to take over the family business eventually. So they are very much a brother and sister relationship where they hate each other, but if anyone messes with the other, fuck you, you will die.
And are Valeska's parents supportive of her decision to join the Golden Tree?
Yes.
Okay.
They are very supportive, and Val writes home. She probably has like a letter, maybe 2 letters a day, you know, in a pouch ready for the next caravan headed back to Rakma, with all of the like very detailed, it's probably in like captain's log style of writing.
Sure, yeah.
But then it's also like, and I love you, Mom. Yeah, they're very supportive, and there's a deeper reasoning for her going out and adventuring, but that will be something that everybody learns about together through the story.
Cool. I love it. So just 2 more questions. What would you say has been Val's most favorite thing to learn about so far?
That is a hard one. I think I would say different languages.
Different languages. Okay. And Val knows 11. Is that right?
Yes, as I consult a list of them. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't picked all 11
Okay,
yet.
but
That's how many languages she has,
Right.
is
Yes.
that she has to have a separate piece of paper with them all written down, and she still does not have them all yet.
Right.
Yeah.
The potential to know 11 in this world. Okay. Cool.
Yes. And she is constantly actively studying more, because that is the biggest barrier to a knowledge exchange, is having no way to communicate. So she wants to be able to communicate with everyone, and I think that's actually probably a spell I was looking at was tongues, and I think it's only a wizard spell, so we'll have to figure that out. I don't know.
Nathan's just like, that's not going to stop me.
We'll figure it out.
Wonderful. And then this is sort of my wild card question, but for you, Sophie, tell me, what is something that might happen that would cause Valeska to betray the party?
Ooh, my initial instinct is the secret, but I have been thinking, and I try not to think too hard about it, but like, what if she is confronted with you could have like ultimate knowledge if we find that object of power? That would be a very
tempting
situation for Val.
Yeah, like who knows what could happen then, right?
And I think it would be very circumstantial as well, because like if she had to betray the party to get it, I lean towards no, but like,
and that's kind of why I kind of think I like the question of what is the flaw a little bit more.
Oh yeah,
because well, but I think it's that's an interesting example of it, because kind of you can guess what the flaw is from there, right? But it applies to so many things, and like to what extent, like is that the stakes? Is it like it has to be a world altering amount of information, or is it kind of where's the slippery slope, right? Of like, is it pursuit of knowledge at all costs, period? It's always good to have more knowledge. Or is it, well, okay, I'll dabble in some things, or I will always choose knowledge over getting treasure, right? Or like, I think Val's a really interesting character because of how principled she is, but but how much the principles lay outside of let's just help people, right? She wants to help people, of course, and that's like the goal ultimately, right? Is that she wants that knowledge so that she can bring it back and she can tell people and teach people. But someone needs to be the intermediary, right, to get that. And I'll be really interested to see how she navigates that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's what I have. Thanks, Sophie. That was really enlightening. I appreciate that. Hi everyone, David here with the midroll. If you're interested in not just the characters, but the world of Ryxia itself, stick around till the end where we've got a quick blurb from our dungeon master, Nathan. We'll also be doing another behind-the-screen episode soon, focused solely on the world and how we use the game of Microscope to build it. As always, don't forget to check us out on Twitter at @reckless_attack and on Instagram at @recklessattackpodcast. And if you think these interviews are fun, let us know by leaving us a comment or a review on your podcast listening service. All right, let's keep it rolling. All right, Steve.
Oh boy.
It's time. Why don't you tell me a little bit about Selv Astralin?
Well, Selv is a silver dragonborn and pretty tall as most dragonborn tend to be, except he is a lot skinnier. Most dragonborn kind of have this stocky kind of, or I should say most dragonborn, as if they're real. But most of them in the typical core rule book are described as being very, very stocky and heavy. And I wanted to make him a little bit more along the lines of an Asian dragon than a Western dragon. He does have some hair, and he is like I said, a silver dragonborn, and so his hair and scales are kind of a mixture and fading between silver and white for the most part. He is a monk, so far 2 levels of monk. And one of the things I was thinking about when I created him was that I really enjoyed playing monks from first edition D&D, and there is the Way of the Open Hand, which is one of the subclasses you can choose at 3rd level, is very similar to what the monks were like in first edition. So that's kind of where it kind of all developed. Is I kind of wanted to play that type of character and kind of get back to try something that I had done before, but in a new edition of D&D, and kind of see, because there are a lot of differences. A lot of differences.
Yeah, what were some of these like new things that you really wanted to focus on with Selv?
So one of the things I really enjoyed was the stunning strike, and the kind of the fact that he is more difficult to hit because he is wiser. Like the fact that his wisdom factors into his armor class and his not his ability to get hit, but his I guess disability to get hit.
His ability to evade
getting hit. Yes.
Do you imagine that kind of being like role playing it as experience in battle, or?
So there's two things. So part of his armor class comes from dexterity, just like everybody else's, and so that's just how fast he is, and he's able to like dodge and weave and do that kind of stuff. But the wisdom part comes from his ability to read people and like his insight into other people and say, look, I've seen you, and based on just what I've been able to glean from the way you kind of act, I'm anticipating that you're the type of person who's going to throw a punch this way. And so he kind of like uses that to his insight into other people to actually help avoid getting hit, essentially. And so first edition monks were typically, they had there's some type of acrobatics, and they were good at climbing, and they were good at like all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the skill set that I gave him, was very similar to what first edition monks had. Yeah, where was I going with that?
No, that's awesome. Yeah,
I think I've reached wherever I was going with that.
Yeah. So you said that Selv has had a lot of experience. He's gotten a lot of insight. Like, where has he gotten all of this experience? Like, where does he come from?
Selv was actually from a very small, born in a very small town at the base of a mountain, and this mountain had a monastery in it, way up high in the mountains, in the snow. And so one of the things that was traditionally done in the town was that you would go to the monastery to get some type of education. And then there was a decision that was made while you were still young, whether you would remain there to continue learning from them, or if you have gotten the amount of education you need, you can go back and basically if you have gotten your grade school education, the basics, you can go be a productive member of society, and you can go back to the town and pick up a job somewhere and do whatever you need to do, or you stay at the monastery and you keep learning. So the kind of like the higher education. And it was Selv decided, and along with his family, that he would stay to essentially become enlightened.
That's cool.
That is really cool. Awesome. So, has he reached enlightenment yet?
I hope not.
Is he
Or
done?
like-
Is that, so I guess as a corollary to that question, like, what is he doing with the golden tree? What does he hope to achieve by joining this guild?
Yes. So the answer is no. If you ask him, no, he has not achieved enlightenment. And basically, if you ask anybody at the monastery who has achieved enlightenment, they will still tell you no, they have not achieved enlightenment. But Selv has not, and he is well aware that he has not. However, an invitation came in specifically addressed to him saying that the Golden Tree Monastery needed him.
The guild, you mean?
The guild, yes. Golden Tree Monastery. The Golden Tree Guild.
Maybe they have a farm system.
Yeah. I told you I would mess this up somehow. The Golden Trees needed him. They needed his wisdom and basically because they didn't know what they were. The Golden Tree is kind of everywhere and kind of involved in all these things. They needed somebody that has a very calming effect on other people. And so Selv kind of, whether he knows it or not, kind of projects this calm. And so his masters at the monastery figured it would be a good match. They would be able to send somebody out into the world to kind of see what everything else is like, because their monastery is kind of hidden. They have some contact with other monasteries, but I mean that's basically what they're limited to. Mm-hmm. And this would give them the chance to send somebody out and to experience and see what else is out there, and then kind of report back occasionally of what they found.
Gotcha. Okay, so Selv is going back to the monastery at some point.
Yes, and maybe even several times. Like if our travels take us close by, he might take a little side trip up to the mountain, which I'm sure he would invite the rest of the party to go.
Val would come in a heartbeat.
Kascorin would think, is it going to be cold?
How many steps are there?
Right. Pretty much. So Selv is a calm, collected cucumber. Kind of. The kind of I pulled a little bit of inspiration from basically two. Well, I won't call them two main. One main source and one ancillary source. The first one is the old television show Kung Fu with David Carradine. So basically, David Carradine plays Kwai Chang Caine, who is a monk that is basically wandering around the Wild West. And cool. So he's just traveling, and he's very calm. He's just out there to kind of see what's out there. And if he's asked to teach, he will teach, but he generally keeps to himself for the most part until he's drawn in by other stuff or conflicts or whatnot. The other ancillary inspiration was actually from an episode of The Simpsons. Ooh.
Oh.
There's an episode where, and I honestly I cannot remember the main plot line of that episode, but what I remember is Homer being outside, and there's a bunch of people about to attack a guy who's dressed all in white and just kind of standing there calmly. And Marge is like, Homer, get inside. And he's like, oh, but he's about to do something cool. And so Marge drags Homer inside, the door closes, then there's just and he runs back outside, opens the door, and like all these people are unconscious, and the guy in white is still standing there exactly the same way as he was, and Homer's like, oh, I missed it.
Perfect.
That's great. I love
Selv.
that is awesome. So Selv obviously has a lot of very good strengths, but is there a particular flaw that you want to share with us?
Maybe. So
Okay.
there is, involved in Selv's backstory and the kind of like the history of the monastery and all this stuff, there's a thing.
Oh.
And so that thing takes precedence for, at least for Selv, over anything else that is being done is that thing. And so everything he does is kind of weighed up against that and determines if he's able to go forward and continue to do what he's doing, or is this going to put the thing in jeopardy, in which case he has to figure a way to either make it so it doesn't, or stop doing the thing he's doing and go back to the thing.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I like that. And maybe someday we'll find out what the thing is. I'm excited.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, because it's a pretty cool the thing.
I know.
And,
Right? Like, I'm
know
like,
what the
I
thing
have a
is.
sweet thing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I was like,
I know all your things.
Yeah.
Like,
And
you
if
two, you two may have sweet custom homebrew builds, but like, we have secrets.
We have things.
Yeah, right. We have no secrets. They're very...
We're open books.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else about Selv that you want to share with us?
I worked in just a little bit of background lore here, but I did work in a couple of, like, I have the name of the head of the monastery, and I have some of the name of the head masters and people that were teaching at the monastery. I basically took a character, my monk character from first edition, and made him the head of the monastery.
That's like literally the best part of
Right.
Because
creating things.
Why else would I make a background if I can't do that? And then I actually took one of my good friends was playing a monk on Neverwinter Nights, and the way he was doing it, I absolutely loved that monk also. So that became one of the other masters at the monastery. So there are two masters at the monastery with ties elsewhere, I guess.
So if they're listening, and this is an early plug to ensure loyal listenership, that if you ever hear that we are going to the monastery, you may have a chance to guest star as this NPC on Reckless Attack. I'll say it right now.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Sophie, I'm just curious. Selv, you barely mentioned his family. Tell us more.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, both his parents are still alive, and he also has a sister. So, his mother is Krilla, his father is Krev, and his sister is Sarla, all with the surname Asterlin. An interesting...
It spells cast. That's what I... K's, A's, and S's.
Oh, yeah.
Unintricate web.
So what I did was when I was first coming up with Selv, I decided I wanted to play a Dragonborn monk. And one of the things I like to do is I kind of get inspiration for names and stuff by running certain phrases or words through Google translators. So I basically said, translate the word silver into as many different things as you possibly can. And then I took those and I kind of bastardized them a little bit. So Selv is actually silver in another language, and Asterlin comes from another language, silver. So Selv's name is literally silver.
At least in real world equivalents.
Yes, in real world equivalent.
Just like the Lion King, like, the lion is coming. The lion is coming.
Yeah.
What about the monastery?
So the monastery is the Bingjuzi Monastery, and that I actually ran through a translator for, I believe I used Chinese and Japanese, and I think I finally landed on the Chinese version of it, but it literally translates to the Air of Ice Monastery.
Cool.
Because it is up in the mountains, and I was trying to stay away from stuff like glacier and things like that. One of the things I did put in was, I think it was literally like icy ground or ground of ice or something like that, and it came back with a phrase, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then I translated it the other way, and it literally came to glacier. All right.
No, not that.
So I finally settled on the Air of Ice, or like the frozen air monastery, and that's what it came to, is Bingjuzi.
Very cool.
Nice.
So I have one more question for you, Steve.
If Selv was a tree,
Right. What is Selv's most treasured memory?
ooh. So I think it would have to be after he had received his initial, let's call it grade school education at the monastery, and he went to meet with his family and also with one of the masters at the monastery. I think his favorite memory is where he decided to tell them that he was going to stay there and continue his education, because he didn't know how that would be received by his family. And when they started smiling and laughing and like being happy for him, like that sealed it in Selv's mind that this was the right thing to do, and he was absolutely thrilled that his family backed him to this.
That's wonderful. I like that. Yeah, I love that.
So
Selv.
Which just goes to show that not all D&D characters have to have a tragic backstory where they are orphaned and they have no family and all of that.
Hey, I resemble that statement. Let me introduce you.
Present company excluded.
Right. Let me introduce you to Checkers, the orphan who has no family.
Who has like aggressively rejected his whole giant family unit. Basically.
I also think it's also nice to give that kind of thing to the DM, because hey, now there's more people to put in trouble and to like get the characters to do stuff, and
right,
more people for me to murder.
Yes, exactly. And so maybe we see. If anything happens to them, maybe we see a not so calm and serene Selv.
I love it.
Maybe his eyes go from purple to violet.
to other purple.
To violent. Purple to violent. Yeah. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, that's it.
Leave that cut in there.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. What an awesome character.
Oh, thanks for the questions. Oh, we've got one more now. Let me get my other notes out.
Cool. Let me introduce you to the best character.
The best checkers.
The best checkers.
The best
The best checkers.
The
Hear
best
that? We're
frog
calling you
boy.
out. Any home game who's ever had a character named Checkers, an NPC, an animal, or even the game of checkers.
Right.
All worse than this boy.
So the problem is,
Suck it.
like, I'm sure there were like little bits and pieces that all kind of. I'll wait to start talking before.
As Jonathan does his
Heck
own
'em.
interview.
Right, as I talk to myself.
I had some ideas as to where this might go.
Yeah.
So Jonathan,
Hi.
tell us a little bit about the character you're playing and what they're like.
All right, absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Jonathan, and I play Checkers, the grung/frog druid, and his trusty frog pal Mango, and his tiny little green tree frog Junior. So, that's a lot of words, but I play Checkers, the druid. He is currently level 2. That said, he is a level 1 fighter, level 1 druid, and the second part of that question was, what is he like? He's kind of just like a little jerk, I think. Like aggressively just
A little turd.
Yeah, he's aggressively simple, I think, is probably the best way to put it, in that he doesn't really have many motivations besides just proving everyone else wrong and just having a good time with his life. Like, my whole thing behind him was he's only going to live like 20 years tops, because that's as long as his people really live. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to do whatever I want with that time. So he doesn't fear death. The only thing he's really afraid of is just like not doing interesting things. So that's kind of just the base motivation for Checkers, is I just want to do cool things.
So that's why Val has such a hard time convincing him to do the boring stuff.
literally anything.
Yeah, and literally anything that he doesn't want to do, because he's like, I don't want to do that. So a very different departure, I think, from like some of the other characters that I played, which is a little bit more like they have a family and they care about the world and all that stuff. Checkers are just like, I just want to do the things that sound fun, and that's the whole reason.
Yes. Yeah. Jonathan is notoriously, or at least last campaign, and from what I can tell, is very, very much a DM's friend, in that he's always very like, yes, I don't need any other plot hook other than to do the right thing. Is this the right thing?
Somebody's
My
in
character
trouble.
wants
We're
to
there.
do that, but conversely is also why I have a great deal of faith in Jonathan to continue to make choices that are fun and interesting, as opposed to like defiantly oppositional and
Right.
like, I'm gonna ruin everyone's fun because I hate everyone,
Right.
in and out of character. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how you play that.
Right. It's a really interesting kind of balance, I guess, in the
typically when you hear about someone who's playing like the, I do things that the party doesn't want me to do kind of character, it's always a like, I messed with their stuff, or like, I tell the king that he looks like an idiot, which checkers would tell the king that he looks like an idiot, but that's a separate...
Not like in a stupid way, but just like this is something he feels deep.
Or,
It's like
I believe you as a player would give us as players and our characters the chance to head that off.
Yes, exactly. It would be like checkers is about his open his mouth, and in this situation he's going to say something stupid. What do you want to do about it?
Presenting interesting choices for everyone.
And thereby, if we don't do anything, thereby making whatever comes out of checkers' mouth our fault.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Exactly. So like I'm trying to like play that line between I'm just going to do dumb things too, but in a way that the party might find entertaining as opposed to just like being oppositional.
Gotcha. Good.
Actually, let me also talk about the whole checkers mechanically piece, unless you were going to go.
Oh, no.
Okay,
Go ahead.
cool.
Go ahead.
Because Kascorin is also kind of, we talked about Kascorin, he's weird. Checkers is also kind of weird, because when I originally came up with checkers, the only thing that I wanted to do was like have a pet. And like have some kind of mount or have like, some kind of thing. But I didn't want to play Beastmaster Druid because by the time when I first originally...
Beastmaster Ranger, you mean?
Beastmaster Ranger, because when I originally came up with checkers, the only Beastmaster Ranger was like the weird revised versions or like the player handbook versions, and those just kind of suck. So I found...
As you say to two players who are playing straight out of the player's handbook.
Specifically the Beastmaster Ranger.
However, neither of us are playing
the
Beastmaster.
Yeah, right.
And at the same token, you guys are also playing subclasses from not core releases, I think. Am I remembering that correct? Oh, no. Open Palm was
And
original.
Arcana Domain's also core.
Really?
Yeah. But like Beastmaster is just aggressively bad. But I also just didn't want to play a Ranger because I like spells. So I badgered Nathan into letting me play a Druid with... Originally, it was more of this custom subclass from this homebrew that I found, which I can't also remember the name of at this particular juncture.
Yeah, we'll make sure it gets linked out and credited.
It will get linked out. I have all this information down there somewhere. But I found a Druid homebrew that traded out Wild Shape for the ability to have a pet, like an actual scalable pet. Mm-hmm. And part of that was also I don't like Wild Shape as a concept. It was just like, I don't like to be someone who transforms into other things. I just want to be my character and have that be it. So at the end of the day, it took me a really long time, but I eventually came down to Druid with a pet, and then we made that work.
Yep.
Nice.
Just real quick, he just reminded me of Jamie Tart of, are you going to be a lion or a panda? I'm going to be me, coach.
Yeah. Don't know if you realize how psychologically healthy that actually is.
Nice.
So we had heard that Checkers and Cass have a kind of a history together. It was implied during Cass's description of Checkers that you were a rogue of some kind, but you have actually chosen a level of Druid and a level of fighter.
Right.
So what drew you to those two instead of the rogue? At least for your fighter class.
We could be here all... No. So fighter was honestly a mechanical choice. It eventually kind of became a lightly world-related choice, but like my brother, I also enjoy min-maxing and making characters and doing cool things. So fighter was there because I originally, when we had first planned this out, the build was going to be crossbow expert sharpshooter. And in order to do that, I had to have fighter so I could actually use the crossbow and all that fun stuff. And then that became irrelevant very quickly, but the other part of it is also like proficiency with martial weapons, having a shield. Eventually, fighter level 2 for second wind. Constitution saving throws at level 1. Like, fighter is pretty much just a mechanical choice, and I don't really lose anything for it. But I think at this point, eventually, depending on how things go, it will become like fighter 5, druid 5. So it's not just going to be a level 1 dip forever, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Along those lines, what was it important for Checkers to be really good at?
Yeah. So there's two things. Pet, the mango is a big one, and whenever I play pet classes, a lot of the times it always ends up being the pet is the focus of the character, and the actual character is just like background information. So I really wanted that to not be the case here, and I'm hoping that it won't be. But Mango the frog sort of beast and Checkers are more or less a pair or equal, as opposed to like Mango doing all of the cool things and Checkers just sort of standing back and casting spells. So that was important to me to like have a pet, but not have it be the main focus. And the second part, I think, was just having the ability to eventually like do mounted combat sort of stuff. Because for our previous campaign, I had played a bard who eventually picked up Fine Steed, and like being able to mount a flying creature and just like fly around and like have all this movement and all these options was like the coolest thing ever to me. Like I really enjoyed just when the mount would come over and my character would like hop on and they would run off into the sunset, or like, you know, we would be able to like do like a flyby attack or things like that. There was just like all kinds of cool tactical options you can do in combat when you control two characters that can become mounted. So that was one thing I really wanted to do, which is why Checkers is small and Mango is medium, because that enables that option.
Nice. So why would Checkers want to join the Golden Tree?
So that's a great question.
And the question everyone's been asking.
Right.
Yeah.
Canonically, it's because he got kind of reverse psychology into it. And this is kind of where Checkers and Kascorin's background comes in, because Kascorin was invited to join the Golden Tree because of his background.
Correct.
Previously, the way I think of it is like Checkers came across Arlen Brushbarrel, the sort of person who's putting the Golden Tree back together, either the day before or something like that previously, and he had received an offer from Arlen to join the Golden Tree, and Checkers said, "No, I don't want to do that. That sounds like work." And then he went over to Kascorin, you know, at some point later in the future, and Kascorin said, "Hey, I'm leaving Lotros. I'm going to join the Golden Tree. I'm going to go be an adventurer." And Checkers got kind of into this, not argument, but just this discussion where I think Kascorin kind of said, you know, what my
Yeah, I think Kascorin said, "This is going to be too much of an adventure for you, Checkers. Like this is way out of your wheelhouse. You can't handle this, you know, this excitement, this responsibility. Like you could never hack it in the Golden Tree Guild."
Right, exactly. So Kascorin reverse psychologied Checkers into doing it, and Checkers is like, "Well, I'm going to join the Golden Tree. I'm going to be the best adventurer there has ever been, and I'm going to show you, Kascorin, exactly what I can do." And that is the only reason why Checkers is here in the Golden Tree, is to prove Kascorin wrong and be the best adventurer.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so where does the line for Checkers between spite, which fuels a lot of what Checkers does naturally, and his own desire for living life to the fullest and experiencing as much as he can and all that kind of stuff. Is there any tinge of wanting to gain renown as part of this, or is it just very self-focused and very like, I'm going to be, by my own definitions, the best adventurer I can possibly be? Or like, where in the spectrum of those is he?
So that's kind of an interesting question, and I'm leaving it open-ended for right now. For Checkers, his motivation is to be the best adventurer, but he doesn't actually know what that means yet.
Yeah.
So if in the grand scheme of things, being the best adventurer means being the most popular or the most well-known, he'd be like, yeah, I'll make my name out. Yeah, I'll put my name out there. But for right now, he's not really thinking about it. He's just thinking about it in terms of, I'm going to be the best, whatever that means, I'm going to do it. So he'll figure it out.
His first goal is to out Kascorin.
Yes, exactly.
And then anything else that happens after that is basically just gravy.
Yeah, he'll figure it out as he goes. Like that's pretty much how he works.
Was there any particular inspiration for creating Checkers, or did you just kind of want to go weird?
I pretty much just kind of wanted to go weird. Most of Checkers is just like me trying to think about what would be the dumbest thing for me to do right now, and then flavoring it in a not dumb way, but mostly doing that. The only thing I would say is Mango is like 90% inspired by my dog Bonnie.
Yes.
So anytime you see Mango do something, it's most likely something that my dog has done.
Oh my god, is that why Mango's such good at grappling? Because
Yes.
Bonnie never lets go?
Yes, related.
That does explain the eyeball licking.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So sometimes you may be like, you know, Mango goes over and sits on your feet, or Mango leans up against you. I'm like, yes, that's what Bonnie would do in this situation. Yeah.
Everyone must know that Bonnie has jaws of steel and will play with a toy by just chomping it and then laying down.
Yes.
And you cannot move her.
I will outlast you.
Right. So that's pretty much where my inspiration for that comes from.
Okay. And I think we touched a little bit on, we touched on where Checkers lived
Yeah.
previously, but where is he actually from?
Sure, absolutely. So this goes in.
If it's knowledge that everyone would know. Or if you would have
also
said
true.
something.
Yes, feel free to say he is from secret area.
Yeah.
From away. And what would his answer be if one of the adventuring party asked him, you know?
Know that Val would have asked Checkers,
Yeah.
but Val is
And the cast would have,
also
I'm sure, too.
Val's respectful if you did not want to share.
Right. So this is where I kind of think it's interesting because there's a part of history that Checkers knows about his guild, and there's a part of history that I think the rest of the world knows about his guild, and they're different. Because
About his guild?
About his clan. So Checkers lived in Lotros for about 6-ish months while he was learning how to steal things, how to speak common, that kind of stuff, and he essentially grew up with the orphans here in Lotros. But where he's actually from is a group of islands pretty far to the east from the main continent. I'm calling them the Isles of Kamale. It's essentially just fantasy Hawaii, but up a couple notches, where all the volcanoes are active and it's super hot and all the monsters are crazy. But he is from a clan of Grung there called the Icebreakers. And today they are called the Icebreakers, but in previous history they were called something else. And the Icebreakers were a clan that used to be much bigger. And Checkers wouldn't know this, but these days they're just kind of maybe 100 strong, and they stay pretty much within those islands. And they don't really go anywhere. They're just very insular. Part of the reason why Checkers left is because when he was born with additional sort of a strong connection to nature, which explains his druid powers and why he has Mango as sort of a very close pet friend.
Partner.
Yes, partner. He was expected to grow up and lead the Icebreakers eventually, but that required a lot of sort of formal training, a lot of learning, a lot of just ceremony and traditions. And Checkers is I'm going to live for 20 years tops. Why am I spending all my time doing this? So he left the clan, swam across the ocean, and came over to the main continent where we are at today. Kind of just to continue back in history, the clan that he was at was originally known as the Wave Crashers, and they assisted the Pentarchy with some of their sort of shenanigans. And back then, the Wave Crashers were eventually lightly betrayed by the people of the Pentarchy, and that caused them to sort of fold in on themselves and collapse into the state that they are now. So some people, like Valeska, who are familiar with history and the Pentarchy, might know about the Wave Crashers because back then they were actually a fairly big deal. They were sort of the strongest naval force in that part of the world, and big on shipping, big on transportation, all that kind of stuff. So when they were sort of betrayed by the Pentarchy, they vanished essentially, and a lot of that knowledge was lost because the Grung of the Icebreakers only live for 20-30 years, and unless you're constantly doing something and constantly learning, an entire generation can just forget things without really ever having the opportunity to pick it back up. So that's just kind of history that Checkers would never know, but might come up at some point.
That's cool.
If Val knows this, she assumes Checkers would.
Yeah.
And if Checkers hasn't told anybody, she just is probably assuming he doesn't want to bring it up. I don't know why, but you don't want to talk about maybe your parents worked for the Pentarchy years. She's probably assuming that, and she would never assume that Checkers just might not know that.
Yeah.
Your great-great-great-grandpa.
Yeah, that it's a secret as opposed to but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm imagining Grung physiology as new families or new generations are born every single year, and it's been maybe a couple decades since the Wave Crashers collapsed and the Icebreakers were formed.
If not longer.
This is kind of the equivalent of Checkers not knowing something from the 1600s in human time, because he's only a year and a half old and his species matures in a year. So he's thinking about his great grandfathers at that point and what they did, which is why he doesn't really know about it, because no one ever taught him.
Nice. Just one more kind of main question,
Yeah.
and then we can open it up to anybody else. Are there any circumstances where Checkers would decide to leave the party and go home?
And go home? He would never go home.
No?
Yeah, he has no reason to ever return back. Would he ever decide to leave the party? That's kind of where I'm still trying to figure that out, because as part of his goal to be the greatest adventurer whatever that means. If he decides that being with this party or being at the Golden Tree can't help him fulfill that, or if he can be a quote-unquote better adventurer somewhere else, he might take that option.
So at this point, where we are in the story, that being a great adventurer is more important than your companions.
I kind of want to say yes. Like,
okay.
His companions are the vehicle with which to become a great adventurer. So this is just what he's working with right now. And this is very much like beginning Checkers. Like he has.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is. We have just started off. We've only had a handful of games so far.
Yeah, right.
This is Checkers' mindset.
Right,
but as of now,
I'm thinking right now he's not particularly attached to like the Golden Tree as a guild. Sure. He doesn't really believe in its like tenets. If following the tenets really well means he'll be the best adventurer, then he will do that. But he hasn't decided that yet.
Okay.
So if another adventuring guild were to come along and prove that they were better than the Golden Tree, that might be an interesting decision point for Checkers, even early on in this campaign.
Checkers betrays the guild and the party. You heard it here first.
Spoiler alert.
Right, yeah, right. I mean,
this is coming out after episode 1 and 2, Jonathan.
Yep, you got it. So that's where I'm at.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you,
Okay, but
Steve.
what about the stack of frogs?
Oh, yes.
Stack of frogs.
Yes. So Checkers is 3 frogs. There's Mango, the medium
Checkers
frog.
is 3 frogs.
Right.
He himself.
The Mango, the medium-sized frog. Checkers, the small-sized frog who rides the player character who rides on top of Mango, and then Junior, which is his find familiar frog.
One of the spells that he gets.
Yep. That just sort of sits in the hat and peeps out and looks at things.
And is a frog.
And is also a frog. So it's just 3 frogs all stacked up. That's where the stack of frogs comes from.
the 3-frog tree frog.
Yeah, pretty much. I also really, really wanted to be like, they're all frogs because they all have 10-foot tall high jumps. So I wanted to just be like Mango high jumps, Checkers high jumps, and then Junior high jumps, and we just see Junior on top of a 30-foot building in like 6 seconds.
Yeah, right. That's just immediately ascended.
Right. Just like, hang on, let me go get a view from up there. Junior leaps up 30 feet and then use the familiar vision to just see what's going on up there. Because
Perfect.
I'm dumb like that. That's the kind of stuff that I like.
Man, that's the kind of stuff I like.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's what I want in my D&D games.
To just be real dumb things.
Yeah, I just want a television show or movie kind of pan back, and we just see like this dense foliage, and then you just see boing.
Yeah, right.
It's like a frog just kind of appears at the top.
Right.
And it's like hovers in the air for like a second, then like falls back down.
Yep. Right. We haven't discussed the falling rules for if you're jumping so far. So like if Junior jumps up to 30 feet and then falls 30 feet, presumably he's dead.
That's a risk you're going to have to take.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
That was, I believe that was something I had seen on a video about rules as written, was that if you are playing a race that can jump 10 feet, you take falling damage from dropping 10 feet.
Right, exactly.
And so you could kill yourself by jumping too high.
But if Mango lands and Checkers lands and they jump up and sink,
right.
does Junior only take 10 feet of falling damage as they catch him?
Well, what's the air resistance of each of these frogs? I think that's where it gets...
I'll let you know that Junior only has 1 HP, so regardless of how far
so it doesn't
Okay,
matter.
so the first time Junior falls to his death and dies,
oh no.
Valeska will prototype
Frog
a
parachute.
teeny tiny frog parachute.
Done and done. I mean, we can retroactively say that that's happened once already. I don't know how I don't know how careful
training.
Checkers is.
I'd like to amend my previous statement. I want to see the pan out of the forest, and I want to see the little frog pop up and then slowly float down.
I'm imagining it like a Goomba parachute.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, it's all canon when you just say it.
Right?
Okay, frog parachutes are a thing.
Yes.
Bring it from work it in.
The only thing I think that would be left would be loading them into a crossbow.
Yeah.
Shooting them with I can just see like the goggles.
goggles.
The goggles come down. Let me off. Let me go.
All right, last and definitely least, lore. So I figured that a lot of people like myself are just lore and world building junkies who like to know all the weird fiddly bits of the world that we're going to be adventuring in, but also because we tried really hard to keep our first few episodes very in media res and very enmeshed in the world without trying too hard to stop and explain a bunch of fiddly things that may or may not have much to do with the plot, that we would really benefit from some instances of just explaining a few things. Things that are prevalent, that characters would know, that people in the world would know, but might not necessarily come up in the everyday conversations, but might be important to know, just to know kind of the place that we're adventuring in. So, speaking of the world that we're adventuring in, it is a totally homebrew one that I and really we created together specifically for our podcast. We kicked around a lot of ideas in the months between kind of ending our last campaign and starting this one, and I got stumped and overwhelmed, and we actually ended up playing the world-building game Microscope to build our world and our timeline, which is really highly recommended. And then I took what we came up with and just kind of ran with it from there. And I took that, I slapped in some ideas that I thought were neat. I took all the great world building ideas from the players as they were coming up with their characters or just coming up with other neat things. And that is the Ryxia that you see before you today. And so in the fiction of the world, Ryxia was created by 12 gods, one for each of the main cleric domains, essentially. These gods also created all the humanoid or player character races of the world and gave them languages, and even lived on Ryxia with these mortals for a time. Therefore, all the ancestries and races in our settings, even though they are as diverse as you would see here on Earth, are very much seen as equals and can more or less be found intermingling throughout the world with a couple of kind of specific exceptions. The gods also created the great dragons, giants, and other intelligent creatures that go a bit beyond the term air quotes mortal, that are kind of, again, the player races. Each god is kind of an amorphous representation of each of these domains. They go by a variety of names and different appearances and have a bunch of different legends around them depending on the culture and civilization all around the globe. And for centuries, heroes and villains who attained a certain level of fame and accomplishment were identified as saints under these gods, which is, kind of just the Western colloquialism that I use in the shorthand. But, in the world and in your own kind of headcanons and stuff, definitely insert your own versions of that, whether it's, rishis or walis or what have you. Whatever terminology is kind of cool and interesting, all canon, all very real, and each of these represented different aspects of that domain. Someone who follows, say, the god of knowledge could also revere a couple of saints who are like, well, specifically, I like the part of knowledge where I'm writing books or reading or accumulating knowledge. And so here's a couple of saints who represent that in the world. Or someone who is a war domain cleric. And it's like, well, I specifically like the part of war where it's about chivalrous combat and about, kind of doing things the right way and treating your opponents with respect and that sort of thing, is a totally valid follower of the kind of big picture war god, who would also have these kind of saints representing the particular aspects of the god that they're revering. It's kind of a nice way to let players and even fans or whoever really focus in on the parts of the domain that they are most interested in exploring in their character, and also a great way just to diversify the stories that can be told in it. And I'm excited to kind of see the ways that we, kind of integrate that and keep working those sorts of things in. So it also would not be a fantasy setting if we didn't talk about the magic. Since the gods left the world, Ryxia has really had a lot of ages divided by how prevalent magic is at that point in time. High magic to medium magic to low magic to medium magic to high magic, and, so on and so forth. But as mortal control of magic goes higher, so does, of course, its misuse, and so does the strange appearance and power of creatures known as monsters. These are creatures who are often aggressively murderous, manipulative, or just kind of otherwise bad news, particularly towards all mortal races. Right now, the campaign is taking place in a kind of medium magical period, but in a very confusing way to any scholar of history or magic. The monsters seem to be at a higher magical level than the level of magic kind of accessible to mortals right now. So you guys are kind of not fighting fire with fire, so to speak. So it's extra dangerous. And no one really knows why that's the case, and that's the first recorded time in history that kind of the different levels are out of sync, and no one's exactly sure why. Our campaign is starting out in the foothills of the Emerald Range in the city of Agmar. We have maps of that on social media and on our website. This part of the world was under the control of the Pentarchy, a tyrannical group of sorcerers who ruled for several hundred years. On top of their own kind of magical prowess and dominance and armies and intelligence and capabilities, they also controlled a number of things called the Objects of Focus, which are extremely powerful magical items created during a few of the higher magical periods of the world. It really allowed them to exert even more control over a huge area of the world and pretty much reign more or less unchallenged until their reign was challenged and really ended when one of the two suns of this world fell out of the sky and destroyed their capital city, which is actually on the map and kind of near-ish to where the adventurers are going to be playing, presumably killing the Pentarchy, their lieutenants, all that kind of thing, and unleashing these giant titans that are called Ultra Giants. I'm not going to go too in-depth about them. I'm sure they'll come up a little bit during the campaign, or we'll talk about it some other time, but essentially these huge titans raged around the world for years, destroying cities, killing untold numbers of mortals, and really just totally reshaping the scope of the world until they kind of mysteriously disappeared. Now the world is reemerging and retaking cities and swaths of land, the few that still stand, that is, and so it is still very much for those of you, for those of you who are fluent in kind of the D&D terminology, this is definitely a points of light setting where there are areas that are towns or cities that are well defended and pretty well guarded that you can pretty much always feel safe in, relatively. There will still be adventures in cities, but really as soon as you get out of the areas around cities, you are in the wilds. You are in trouble. It is very, very dangerous. And overland travel is done only by the foolish, the powerful, or the many. And that's really about it. And none of those are guarantees of success. Finally, wanted to touch briefly on adventuring guilds, which we talked about a little bit, but in this world is this old, ancient, revered tradition. They date back centuries, millennia even for some of them, and they all have an interesting naming convention where they were all originally kind of rooted in this ancient mother language of power that the gods handed down to mortals when they were living with them. These words and these names had this mystical power to them. There are all sorts of legends about the amount of power that this conveyed, the stature of these sort of individuals who would be adventuring under these names. But through the ages, the access to that language was lost, and the power kind of went with it of these names. But they were so well known and so powerful and so meaningful to so many people that even as the names changed and the different languages changed, and the names kind of turned to nonsense, they still carried a lot of weight. And so a lot of people have taken these really long names. Again, these are like 12-word names that have somehow been mistranslated and, again, entered into Google and then re-entered into Google Translate and then re-entered into Google Translate. And they've taken these clunky long names and shortened them into kind of these more, more fun ones like the Golden Tree. And that is the adventuring party that everyone is in for this campaign. We will talk more about all the various lore stuff. I'm sure we'll have follow-up episodes, maybe even probably just cover a lot of it during the course of normal episodes as these sorts of things come up. But we figured, hey, big lore dump up front. Hopefully people find it interesting, and it'll kind of help set the stage and set the feel for the world that we're trying to create together.
Yay.
There will be a quiz on this, of course.
Right.
I hope you all are as excited as we are to see these characters run around the world of Ryxia in our new campaign. If you like what we're doing, let us know on social media or leave us a review on your podcast listening service of choice. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.